Hello?
Yes, sir.
Good
Ah,
afternoon, sir.
good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, sir.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, sir.
Ah, ah. Uh,
Good
shall
afternoon,
I start?
sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, shall I start? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So today we will be just discussing about the learning and development in the human context actually. Learning has been there at for a long time in the human life, and then it is being reflected upon as the change in the behavior and the modification of the behavior. So you can just see that learning goes on taking place from right from the birth to death of the person. So learning takes place in at home, learning takes place at school, learning takes place in the society. So like that, you can just see learning is there at every point of time, and then one goes on learning and learning layer by layer and stage by stage, and one goes on just accumulating the knowledge and reflecting upon that. So you can just see that Charles Darwin, long back in 1877, published a book, and there he tried to classify the various categories of the animals and the and he was just trying to emphasize the evolution which is just taking place. Evolution is in terms of the differentiation and then integration and progressive selection of the fittest and the best. So you can just see that the learning takes place through the interaction of the person with with his environment and with others, and discovering something which is helpful for the person to grow. So you can just see that the learning is always taking place in conscious state. One cannot say I am just sleeping and I am learning. Or one has got intoxicated and one is learning. Or one is just taken some medicine, which makes the person to what say narcotics, uh, you know. So and then one is learning. No, it is just not that. So you have to just see that one is in conscious state and one is not intoxicated, and then only learning is said. Learning is taking place. So the having understood, the learning is
Sir, we
seen
are
in
not able to listen you.
ha learn learning is learn. Are you able to hear me now? Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Ha ha.
Yes,
Right.
sir, you are audible.
Okay. So learning is taking place always, all the time. Huh? Learning is taking place always, all the time, and then one makes the effort to just see the learning is taking place. The interaction of the individual with this environment is very important for the learning to take place. Learning is a process as well as a product. So learning, is get differentiated as the person grows, as he interacts with others, as he goes on interacting over time on various aspects. You can just see that as the person ages, so one learns, but then that is not learning. So one that is only experience, that is maturation. But so one tries to differentiate maturation from learning. So learning is something which makes the changes in cognitive aspects, affective aspect, that is feeling aspects, and then the skills aspect, the psychomotor aspects. For example, one is learning driving a vehicle. So one is just focusing on the skills there. So one is just reading a book. One is focusing on cognitive aspects. One is just trying to develop relationship. So there, the affective aspect is there. So learning takes place once you interact with a person. You just try to categorize a person and say, oh, one is strict, one is liberal, and one is outgoing, and extrovert, introvert, like that. So this is all, once again coming out of the learning. So the learning takes place throughout the life, and it is continuous, progressive, and it is developmental in nature. So learning is a very important aspect which makes the person to develop. Learning is required for the development. The human development is seen from 3 points of view. One is physical, second is cognitive, third is emotional, social. I'll just repeat. Human development takes place throughout lifespan, and it is a process of becoming something different while remaining the same with respect to the various aspects like physical, cognitive, and emotional, social. So you can just see change occurs as transition and transformation on three major dimensions, that is biological, psychological, emotional,
सर
social.
वी आर नॉट एबल टू लिसन एनीथिंग आपने स्टार्ट किया तब से
अभी तो बोल रहे थे लिसनिंग है तो हमें लिसन
Sir,
कर
we
पा रहे
can listen.
Yes,
हैं.
sir. We can listen you.
Yes,
You're
sir.
audible, sir.
Yes, we
Somebody is
can.
saying that somebody is listening and
Yes,
somebody
sir.
is not listening. How is it possible? I have to repeat once again.
Sir, you are audible.
Phil.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
change
sir.
occurs as transition and transformation on three major dimensions, that is biological, psychological, and emotional and social. So you can just see there are various perspectives which are there for studying the learning and then the human development. Lifespan perspective is taken in this context, and I am just going to describe the lifespan, the perspective, in detail. So the focus on the long-term consequences, sequences, and patterns of changes in human behavior is more important, and the learning is the thing fulcrum and the basis, foundation for the changes in the human behavior, formation of patterns of behavior, and formation of character, personality, and various aspects. Each perspective in human is unique in its tracing the ways people develop and change across the lifespan. So this is given by Balte. Now, Paul Balte is the person who gave the lifespan approach, which in the year 2007, and I'm just going to just discuss it in detail. Most developmental scientists recognize that development goes on throughout the life, and the concept of a lifelong process of development is studied scientifically known as lifespan development, and that I'm just trying to just describe. For example, the Paul B. Bolte, and his colleagues in 1987, and little later, with other colleagues, 1998, and Strodinger and Black 2001, have identified six key principles of the lifespan developmental approach. Together, these principles are as the widely accepted conceptual framework for the study of lifespan development. No, I am just presenting the lifespan development principles now. Now, first is I'll just reiterate. First, give the principles and go on explaining each of the principle. The first is the six principles of Balte's lifespan developmental approach. First is development is lifelong. The development goes on taking place continuously right from birth to till the death, and it is progressive and it goes on differentiating and it goes on integrating such that the person grows from strength to strength, adds to the life, and grows along the paths he gets, which is visible and more promotive of the person. The development in second one, development involves gain and loss. This is a very important thing. It is not that all learning leads to gain. For example, I'll just give you a physical example. you know you gain weight and height only up to a particular age. For example, up to 18 years, you go on gaining the height and weight. But then after 18 years, one goes on gaining the weight. One's height will not change. Our intelligence will not change. So so you can just calculate gain in physical terms only up to a particular period. Whereas intelligence, it goes on growing, and up to 18 years, and then up to 25 years also, you can just see some changes are there. And afterwards, one has to reflect upon one's intelligence, experience, and then gain the wisdom. So you can just see that gain is there only up to a particular period in cognitive aspects also. So you can just see gain is always not accumulative. So it is sometimes you lose also. That is loss is also there. That is also development. Development is gain as well as loss. You have to just take into account both the things. For example, you start losing the earlier childish behavior when you become an adolescent, and the child will say to his father that no, please see, I have become a adult, and then behave. Please behave with me like that. No one says that. So what does it mean? So that means to say he has left the childish behavior and he has grown up with the learning. So the loss which is there of the earlier childhood days, I mean childish behavior, is something accepted. There is no difficulty at all. So similarly, you can just see, persons losing sometimes weight actually due to the diet, due to the exercise, due to the age, for example, is accepted. That's not a problem. Similarly, various aspects of loss which is there during the development is accepted. After 40 years, one starts losing the weight, let us say, or sensory aspects are not very clear, or after 60 years, for example, more deterioration is there, and of the physical aspects or the sensory aspects, like seeing, hearing, like that. Various aspects are there which deteriorates. Then this deterioration is also development actually. You can just see this loss also on its counted along with the gain. So the wisdom is obtained, that is a gain. But then deterioration of the physical senses is the loss. The third principle is the relative influences of biology and culture shift over the lifespan. So what happens is that the biology influences the life and the development of the person, and the culture shifts the lifespan. For example, you can just see the earlier period, just let us say 50 years back, 60 years back. If you see our parents or grandparents, for example, mostly grandparents, they could not live for a longer period. No, 50 years, 60 years was the lifespan. And you could just see many people have died. But then today, the lifespan has increased, dramatically. So the lifespan has gone to 68 years old. So it is not only true for the old, that they are going to live up to 60 years. Now, it is true for the younger people also who are going to grow older up to 68 years. So this sort of a thing, the change in the lifespan is a cultural shift which has just taken place in India, for example. Similarly, in many other countries, in China is another example, wherein the elder population is growing. So you can just see that one third of the elder population, that is who has become the 45 or 60 and above, has increased, and at the same time the youth population, that is 18 to 35 years old people, their number has also increased tremendously. And this change is, has made India vibrant. So you can just see that this has to be capitalized, trained properly in order that India grows properly. Fourth principle is development involves a changing allocation of resources. No, for example, you know, the parents think that child was there in the school and you are spending this much, and the same amount will be enough for college education also. Why do you want more pocket money when you are going to the college? So why do you want more fees like that? Questions are asked. But the point here is as the development is there, more and more allocation of resources are needed. This one tries to understand. Now, for example, more cloths are needed, for example, or more fees is needed, maybe a conveyance is needed. For example, at least two-wheeler is needed, or a cycle is needed in order to just commute. So this sort of a thing, a shift is a very very important thing. Just I was just seeing in the television that in West Bengal they have given a cycle to each of the girl actually, in each of the child who is going to the college and the school. So around 1 million what say the cycles will be procured and given to the children who are going to study. So this sort of a thing is a cultural shift which is taking place in favor of the education. So you can just see similar thing is happening in Tamil Nadu also. So the development involves a changing allocation of resources. So this changing of allocation of resources is done by the political parties, by the parents, society, family, elders, and others who are there in the society. The fifth principle is development is modifiable. This is very important thing. Okay, so young child is there or a growing adolescent is there. He was truant. He was well known for doing mischief. And when he becomes a little old, adult, for example, and elder will say, "Oh, this fellow, I know he is truant. He will definitely do some mischief." Okay, but then the change in the behavior he is not able to see. After some time, after studying, he accepts that there is a change in the behavior of the person. So similarly, even in case of girls also, there is a modification is taking place as the person becomes post-adolescent or after a person gets married. After one goes to the college, and so these things are to be recognized. So this brings about modification in the behavior of the person. Like for example, he has got different types of experiences. These experiences are also make the person to modify one's behavior. The interaction with different cultures also helps the person to just grow and makes the see the development. So the last principle is sixth principle as given by Paul Barta is development is influenced by the historical and cultural context. So this sort of things, for example, historically, our people are valuing learning. Our people are learning various things in our culture. Non-formal education is there, informal education is there. It is very rich, in terms of songs, music, stories. Our culture is rich. So this is influencing the education. At the same time, the cultural context has to be seen. For example, we see that education which is given from Western point of view, Western culture is better than the Indian culture or the local culture. Yes, to a certain extent, when it is you are providing science and technology lessons or mathematics, you are right. But when you are just coming to the cultural aspects, language aspects, you have to focus upon the local language or the what say the local influence. So you be global. There is nothing wrong, But then act local is a very, very important thing, as much as the what's a global aspect. So the Paul Baltes framework has got three aspects. One is the physical, that is biological. Second is cognitive aspects. Third is emotional, social. What is physical development? The physical development involves changes that occurs in a person's body, including changes in weight and height, in the brain, heart, and other organ structures and processes in the skeletal and muscular and dimensions and neurological features that affect the motor skills. So you can just see this is happening right from the birth. So the child in the first 2 years is not able to show much of learning because the child is in the sensory motor stage. So it reacts to the sensory stimulus. And it is only from the 2.5 years, 3 years old child, the child starts learning, and then the cognition is seen, and you can just see that intuition is there, and then a little later child starts learning, and gradually progression is there. The child is born with brain. You see, as soon as the child is born, child is able to respond to most of the stimuli. There is not much of a difficulty. By the time the child becomes 5 years old, when the human brain is completely formed, around 2 billion now neurons are there in the brain of the person, and these neurons they network and they go on networking in order that the more and more higher forms of folds are there, and more experiences just accumulated, integrated, analyzed, and then further categorized. So you can just see that in the adolescent stage, very important development takes place, that is called as puberty. That is the secretion of the endocrine glands take place. So due to that, you can just see the increasing the size and strength of the person, both male and female, and development of secondary sexual characters, which is characteristic to the boy, and is similarly the secondary sexual characteristic to the girl. It is coordinated, guided, and promoted by the genes, which has just come from the parents and the environment in which they are growing. If it is a temporal environment, for example, temperate environment like India, China, the person becomes mature, physically mature at the age of around 11 to 18 years old. The girl gets mature by 11 to 14 years, and then boys get mature by 2 more years late. That is, let us say, by 13, 14 years to 18 years old. So the maturity takes place faster. Whereas in case of Western countries, the maturity it takes place little later, because the cold conditions are there, that doesn't help in terms of the growth of the person, actually stimulating the hormones, stimulating the development and the growth. So that doesn't mean that the physical development is not taking place in West. It is taking place, but then it takes place a little later, as compared to Indian system. The changes take place in hormone, and the brain changes are also occurring. And the human development is study of human development is a scientific discipline, and its goals are evolved to include description, exploration, the explanation, prediction, and modification of behavior. For example, language development. The child starts learning from making sounds, and the child starts speaking the words, and then it starts making sentences, and then one focus on the speaking through them by interacting with parents, by interacting with people, teachers, and peers. So that way language development takes place, and then one focus on the grammar also. So the scientific study of human development is a sorry, ever evolving endeavor It goes on evolving. The questions that seek answers, methods used, explanations, and the purpose for which that is there, goes on changing. From era to era. Like for example, 20 years, 25 years ago, whatever was there, today that is not there because there is a shift. What is called as paradigm shift has taken place. The generational, what's a change, gaps are there found, and this paradigm shift is more accepted, and change is more pursued, organized for development. So, for example, the our old people, which you see today, are not very familiar with computers, data handling and all those things. But then the younger generation is highly trained towards the data handling and then the computers, and they are able to fast react to the changes. So this is happening because of the paradigm shift. So tomorrow, I mean, because now we are introducing the what we call as the data coding. Maybe in another 20 years or 15 years, as the case may be, you will see that the children or the people, adolescents, adults, they will be able to program very well. They will be able to handle numerical data better than the present generation. The change in the attitude towards the cultural attitude for technological change and development will be just more positive and more developmental in nature, and faster development will take place definitely in the future. And every person has got a better future and to live longer and to live better. Development takes place lifelong and it involves interdisciplinary approaches. It includes psychology, psychiatry, sociology, anthropology, biology, genetics, family science, education, history, philosophy, and medicine. They have mentioned few subjects. There are many more subjects. For example, values, you know, about the anthropology. Like that, there are many subjects which are there, which influences the life of man, life of society in a larger measure. Most of the lifespan studies are long-term studies. For example, Paul Balte, in Germany, he studied for 8 years and more than that, and he started a society also. For example, the present chancellor of Germany is also a member, life member of the Paul Balte Association. So they have been studying the behaviors for a long time. The United States grew out of research designed to follow children through adulthood. And for example, the famous studies are the Stanford studies of gifted children began in 1921 under the direction of Lewis M. Terman. So the Terman studies are very important. That traces the development of the people. So similarly, you can just see, there are many studies which have been there for a long time. They have been studying. They are mostly experimental in nature, and they have made a big, change. For example, in 1930s, Fels Research Institute study, Berkeley Growth and Guidance Studies, and Auckland Adolescent Growth Studies are more important, and they are having long term. They are focusing on long term development. If you are not able to mention these things in the examination, there is no difficulty. But the point here is just to have a view, listen to it. That should be helpful. There is no difficulty. The sensitive instruments to measure various aspects, even the psychological characteristics, physical characteristics, for example, eye movements, heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension, etc., have they have helped in showing more links and relations between biological functions and then the visual attentiveness of the infants or the childhood intelligence. Then the very powerful cameras, video cassette recorders, computers, imaging machines allow investigators to scan infants' facial expressions, and they are able to interpret the facial data to see the signs of emotions, to analyze the communication of mother and baby. So similarly, the advances in neuroscience and brain imaging. now make it possible, for example, MRI, for example, or EEG, to probe the mysteries of temperament, to pinpoint the sources of logical thought, and to compare a normal aging brain with the brain of the person with dementia. Dementia means, one is forgetful, and then the brain cells are affected, and due to that, he doesn't have memory. So the one amnesia is one example of it. So the research has direct and positive implications for child rearing, education, health, and social policy. Oh, no, what are the life transitions which are there? I'm just giving few examples. That's all. I don't have much time, or I'll not be able to make effort to just mention all the transitions. A woman returning to work after maternity leave, for example. So although it was only for a shorter period, maybe 9 months or so, or 1 month, or 1.5 months, you can just see that there is a big change in the what's a perspective of the person, and the ability is not at all reduced in any way. Or for example, a person making a career change. So the person changes his career, and he doesn't regret the career change. So you just see there is every possibility, every effort made in order to grow in the career. Or for example, another example is widower dealing with the loss of the other one, or coping with a terminal illness. For example, famous physicist was there, he is no more. No, with the entire body was paralyzed except the head, actually. And with that, with the paralyzed hands and other things, he was able to manipulate computer, and he was writing books. You know the name now. So he lived for a longer time. He was a most successful man in physics, and the theories which he gave in physics were very prominent. So the even terminal people with terminal illness also can contribute significantly to the society and societal development, and speak for the future. So this is a very illustrating example. Another important change which is there is the change and stability. So what is change and stability? I'll just try to just explain. Developmental process involves many changes and features of stability. These changes are studied in two ways. One is the quantitative change, and another is the qualitative change. What is quantitative change? Quantitative change is a change in the number or amount, such as growth in height, weight, vocabulary, aggressive behavior, or frequency of communication. Now, what is qualitative change? This is more important. That is, it is a change in the kind, structure, or organization. The schools and colleges, universities have accepted automation, online, many of the functions such as admission, examination, payroll, etc. It is marked by the emergence of new phenomena that cannot easily be anticipated on the basis of earlier functioning. The physiological changes, that such as change from an embryo to a baby, or from a non-verbal child to one who understands words and can communicate verbally, is a very important thing. No, it is very interesting that Professor Dave made a study, and by the time the child becomes 5 plus, he has the capacity to learn any language in the world, and provided training is there. You know, you can just learn. The child can learn. There is no limit for what say the learning. So developmental scientists are interested in stability or consistency of personality and behavior. For example, 10 to 15% of the children are consistently shy, and other 10 to 15% are very bold. So you can just see that there are people who have learned swimming, for example, computers, and they are children, and they are good, and they are going to become influencing the later periods of life. For example, I'll just give you an example. I have just come across the children of Delhi public school. They learn swimming, they learn computers, and really they are excellent people. They are doing really well. That's a first grade school. So this happens. And see, for example, Navratna school, public schools, or other schools. They have learned many things, and their lifespan is broader and longer, and life perspective is also broader and longer. So this makes a lot of difference. Broad dimensions of personality such as consciousness, I mean the stability, openness to new experience, seem to stabilize before or during young adulthood. So this makes a lot of difference for the growth and development and for the personality of the person. The questions of development are what would be the enduring change? Whether the change is going to sustain is a question. Okay, you have learnt and forgotten. मैंने सीख लिया था, कुकिंग तो सीख लिया था थोड़ी देर के लिए, कुछ कुछ साल के लिए मैंने प्रैक्टिस भी किया, लेकिन अभी नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ. So this sort of thing could happen. That doesn't mean that the person will not be able to learn cooking. Just for few days practice will be able to make that person a good cook. So it is an enduring change. There is no doubt about it. So how do you sustain the change for the development? Sustaining change for the development comes through sustained training and sustained effort to practice, and then devotion towards the learning of the aspect. The skills of learning need to be sustained for development in life. For example, to ability to use the language. As you use the language, you just progress in the language. For example, there are people who have gone abroad from here, and they are not able to speak the Gujarati language. Invariably, they speak in English when they come to India. Why it happens? Because it's not that they do not know Gujarati language. They are born in this place. They are brought up in this place. They know the language very well, but they have lost the habit of using this language abroad, and that's how they are hesitant to use the language. And if they stay back here for 1 month or so, they will be able to equally, very easily competent to be competent to just interact in the Gujarati language. So it happens. The culture and the opportunities given in the environment to grow and the positive changes helps the person to grow in the language. The positive attitude development is also a very important thing. The whole learning or the development is a holistic view, and it has to be seen in that way. The skills such as computers, driving cars, swimming, writing, for example, communicating, all are all showing growth and show development, show sustenance in terms of the knowledge, understanding, and the skills. So now let me go on to focus on the domains of development. Now I'll just make concluding statement. No. Tomorrow I'll just discuss. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. Otherwise, I'll make some concluding statements. Do you have any questions? Yes. Do you have any questions? Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Do you
Yes.
have any
Yes,
questions?
sir.
Ask me questions.
No.
No.
No, sir.
Okay. Now let me make some concluding statement concerning domains of development. Changes and stability occur in various domains or dimensions of the self. The gradual growth and evolution of the self is the development. The development is classified as physical development, cognitive development, and psychosocial development. These domains interplay with each other to show the ladder of development throughout the life. The physical development is primary and important development in life, such as growth of the body, brain, sensory capacities, motor skills, and health as a part of physical development, and its influence in on the other domains of the development. The infections in the childhood may affect the development of the language. The immunization in the childhood, yes. The immunization, the immunization in the childhood, for example, 0 to 10 years or 11 years, is an important protection for life against diseases such as diphtheria, pertussis, that is typhoid, that is DPT, mumps, chickenpox, polio, etc. During puberty, dramatic physical and hormonal changes affect the development of the self and the sense of self. And in some older adults, physical changes in the brain may lead to intellectual and personality deterioration, and less of plasticity is seen in the brain, as the person becomes very old. The cognitive development. Yes, cognitive development here, the change and stability in the mental abilities such as learning, attention, memory, language, thinking, reasoning, and creativity constitute cognitive development. These cognitive aspects are closely related to physical and emotional growth. The ability to speak depends on the physical development of the mouth and brain. The child having difficulty in expressing in words may evoke negative reactions in others, influencing the popularity and sense of self worth. Now, the psychosocial development, just to be brief, I'll just give a brief, and tomorrow I'll just elaborate in detail. The psychosocial development, change and stability in emotions, personality, and social relationship together constitute psychosocial development. This can affect cognitive and physical functioning. The social support and encouragement, positive feeling will help cope with the potentially negative effects of stress on physical and mental health. The physical and cognitive capacities contribute greatly to self esteem and can affect social acceptance and choice of occupation. Development is a unified process getting directions from context and purposes of life. So here we have just completed, the three aspects. One is the learning, the growth, and development. Growth is physical in nature, and it has got a limited span. But then the development is broader. It is more qualitative in nature. Growth is mostly quantitative. Both have got quantitative and qualitative aspects. So the periods of lifespan, tomorrow I'll just discuss. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. Do you have any questions?
Sir, I have one.
No, sir.
हाँ बोलो बोलो. Ask me the
Sir,
question.
yes, sir. Sir,
हाँ,
yes, sir. So you made a comparison between the Western country and Eastern country
हाँ,
about the developmental. Yes, sir. About the
हाँ,
development that
हाँ.
in Western countries the development is hampered due to the climatic conditions over there. So, sir,
No, no, yeah.
development in what sense
Here,
you were saying?
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ,
Yes,
हाँ,
sir.
हाँ. So the point here is that the growth of the thing, for example, hormones stimulation takes place little later here there actually. But then here it
Okay.
takes place faster. That's the only difference. Otherwise, physical development takes place in west as well as in east. Somebody going from east goes to the west, let us say, his hormone will be just stimulated later. That's all. So the growth takes place little slowly. That's all. The male grows 2 years, slower than the females. Females grow faster. Yes,
Okay,
your
sir.
question is very nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other
Thank you, sir.
question? Any other question? Any other question?
No, sir.
Huh. Okay. So with this, I conclude the lecture. Tomorrow we will be just discussing about the periods of lifespan and description according to Paul Voltaire.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.